Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. This is already the third webinar organized by Staffino, and today's topic is how to get the highest return on customer experience or the highest ROCX, as you can see on the screen. I'm here with our presenter, Jan, a CX specialist with many years of experience, gained in multiple countries. And today we will guide you through, or we will try to explain how to maintain the effectiveness of your CX program and how to get the highest return in the shortest time possible. So before we start, let me just mention some formalities, such as the course of the webinar. It will be divided in 3 different topics or sections, and after each topic, there will be room for Q&A, so don't hesitate to ask questions on Slido. I shared the link for Slido in the meeting chat. You can find it there, or you can access directly through Slido and the hashtag that you can see on the bottom on the screen. So ROCX-webinar. And one last thing that I want to mention is that this webinar is recorded, and the recording will be sent to you afterwards, and also available for the public. So I think that's it. And I think, Jan, you can start now, maybe, with the presentation.
Thanks a lot, Kai, for introduction. So welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us today with our webinar. So I think that we can start straightforward with the first topic. In this topic, we would like to discuss and to share our thoughts regarding the service level and how it could be improved without any impact on the customer experience as such. So generally, service level is one of the main metric of the contact centers, and it's quite old one. And most of the managers, people who are working or who used to work in the call centers, they know it pretty well. Just to make sure that we are on the same line. So the service level, in this case, most common one, the 80-20 rule, means that 80% of the calls should be answered within the 20-second cycle time. Generally, this is still being used by many call centers, but based on our analysis and work and discussions with our clients who are running different call centers in different areas of business, we have realized that 80-20 is quite old-fashioned setup, and it could be really changed and help to relax the operations a little. So today, definitely, we will focus on cycle time. In this case 20 seconds, and we will show you how you can make it different, definitely, and get out of it more modern setup of service level, which will fit into this world generally. Maybe one thing for a beginning. If you would consider to change the percentage of the calls which should be answered with the targeted cycle time, this is not recommended. We have seen many different examples when this was changed, typically lowered to 70 or 60, but at the end of the day, it's not working. You can still run the analysis on your data. You can compare the customer experience data from your customers and the service level during some intervals, like 30 minutes or 1 hour. If you will do it on a big scale, for example, on 6 months or 1 year data, you will realize that there is a trigger somewhere below the 80% when the customer satisfaction, the overall satisfaction, will start to drop and decrease. And that's why the 80% is still recommended to keep it as a service level. So let's talk about the cycle time a little. And for today's case, we will take an example of a medium call center with the 85 agents, which are fully utilized with the inbound calls. These calls, in average, are taking 4 minutes. And well, what the client could achieve if he will change the cycle time to 40 seconds. So he will double the cycle time. Definitely, there will be a longer average speed of answer. On the other hand, you can still gain like some simple savings like -3 FTE based on the simple airline C calculation, definitely it will not work in all the call centers just because of the fact that there are so many different approaches how to prepare the schedule, how to staff your people, and more precise you are doing your staffing against the intervals. So more gains you can get on the headcount level. If you are more relaxed when we are talking about the staffing, you are not using many patterns, many shifts, and you are used to work in the same manner every day. So in that case, you will not save so much FTEs at the end of the day, definitely. In the case that you would like to uh, move even further with the cycle time, you can set up the service level up to 80/60, so the cycle time will be 60 seconds, and you can save even more FTEs. In this case, client could save up to 5 FTEs just because of this change. But the big question is how this will impact customer satisfaction. So if we will get some savings out of it. So will it negatively impact our customer satisfaction or not? So this answer is quite simple. So first, what you need to do is to look at your abandoned calls during the intervals and correlate it with the waiting time. So generally, you will realize that there will be some triggers in the waiting time when the abandoned calls starts to rise significantly. In this case, we have seen that the abandons are increasing significantly from the 40, 50 seconds, and the real trigger is the 60 seconds. Afterwards, the most people are dropping the calls and they are just leaving the line. This is quite common approach which we are discussing with our clients because typically in our European environment, we can see that the customers are looking at the waiting time from three different aspects. So the first one is that they are being answered immediately by the agent, so they can hear that the phone is ringing. The second one is that they are ending up in a queue and they are waiting up to 1 minute, which is mostly acceptable for most of the customers because generally most of the customers will not realize if they are waiting 20 or 30 seconds. But after 1 minute, there is clear understanding of the customer that they are waiting too long and they are thinking about hanging up the call and call you again later. So generally, this is quite simple analysis, which will show you based on the hard data, one is the trigger for most of the abandoned calls related to the waiting time. Afterwards, you have to ask your customers what they think, what is the real acceptable waiting time for them, because it will be quite simple to ask the customer simple question like what's your preferred waiting time, but most of them will answer like a 0. They would like to be answered immediately, but generally we are living in a commercial world. We don't have enough money to have define the headcount in the call center. So in this case, it's much better to focus the question for acceptable waiting time of the customer. With this specific client, we have found out that most of the customers uh, are still expecting that they will be answered up to 20 seconds. But it's not even the 1/3 of the customers. As you can see, there are more customers who are accepting 20 to 40 seconds waiting time or even 40 to 60 seconds. When we are talking about the customers for whom is not acceptable to wait more than even for a couple of seconds, you can see that it's a really small portion of the customers. So generally, what we can see, 31% customers accept the waiting up to 1 minute, and 68% of them are accepting 40 seconds. So this gives you a bunch of the customers who are willing to wait. But let's talk a little bit about differences between based on the loyalty. So I'm not sure if you think that there will be huge difference between the promoters and detractors. But when you will cross the data, so for example, in this case, we have found out that there are really small differences. So generally, detractors and promoters are considering the acceptable waiting time quite the same. Sure, there are like a small portion of the percentage dedicated to the shorter cycle time with the detractors, but it's nothing significant. And on the other slide, or on the next slide, we will show you why. It's just because of the relevance of the attributes for the customers. Because in the another question, you can really simply ask the customer what is really important for them when they are reaching your contact center, and you can put there like a list of 10 attributes or 20 attributes. You will always end up with two of them as some of the most important for the customer. That's the contact resolution and the agent approach. These are really even based on many root cause analyses which we have conducted with the clients in the past years. These are really the main attributes which are driving the satisfaction of the client and are really most important from their perspective. You can see that even the waiting time is scoring really far below these most important attributes. Based on that, we can really say that only few percent of the customers of this client is really considering waiting time as the most important attribute. And we have checked the data with the promoters and the detractors, and we realized that it's almost the same. As you can see, there is like a really 2 percentage points more of the customers within the detractors who are considering waiting time as the most important for their satisfaction. But again, the contact resolution is the king, and if you are not able to deliver the contact resolution at the end of the call or at the end of the contact to the customer, so you will not succeed. Based on this, you can say that really there is no impact on loyalty or satisfaction from the service level perspective if you will make the cycle time longer, if you will use the 40 or 60 seconds. There are always many questions how we can make sure that we will not unplease the customer with the prolongated cycle time within the service level. So the answer is quite simple. So you have to try it. Don't be afraid. Just change the service level. For example, for 80/40, you can measure it for next 2-3 months, and you will realize if the customer satisfaction is decreasing or not. Afterwards, if it will remain stable, so you can change it even to 80/60, and again to measure the customer satisfaction. And if there will be no impact on it, so you can just put it as your new standard for your operation. Generally, all the benefits which you can get from the change of the service level. Okay, so the first one, the simplest one, is the FTE reduction. But as I said, it's the tricky one because it really depends from the approach, how you staff your people, how you are using the headcount, if they are utilized with different activities, with different transactions, or it's just like inbound calls and so on. It even depends if you are getting many peaks during the day, if you are trying to manage your service level really flat on an interval level, or you are just trying to hit your targets at the end of the day, week, or year. So all of these aspects will have a significant influence what would be the reduction outcome out of it. And this could be not answered without the data behind it. Another thing is that you can always use the saved FTE or utilization, and you can utilize them with the other activities which has to be done within your contact center. You will definitely please your team leader and your agents because you will get like a more relaxed floor management. So there will be not so many times agents will be pushed to cut their wrap up and to get ready for next call. And based on that, it will be even the smoother management. This is really important even from the customer perspective because your agents will get more time to do the proper wrap-ups after each contact, after each call. So, for example, if they have the system to set up the callbacks, and you are getting a lot of callbacks, in that case, they will get enough time to make sure that the callback has been set up properly, and you will not miss the chance to contact the customer and to resolve the case. Another thing which will really help to drive the customer satisfaction at the end of the day with the change of service level is that agents will get more time to do the proper follow-ups in a system. This is something that is not always being considered as so important, but we are living in a multi-channel or omni-channel world when many of the touch points are connected, and there are many possibilities for the customer how to resolve their case partially in end-to-end in some self-service or with some new fancy bots. On the other hand, if there is a human behind and he needs or she needs to follow up the customer who has contacted your contact center in the recent days or recent weeks, so there will be always big help if they can read proper classification or classification of the call or of the contact in a system, and you just need to give the time to the agent to really make it properly. And I think that that's it from the service level perspective. And now it's time for the questions and answers, if there are any.
Yeah, sure. Let's do the first round of questions. So far, we have got one question. So, what has a greater impact on ROI? Do you think it's customer experience or employee experience?
Well, that's a tricky question because it really depends what kind of business you are doing. So if it's more like a commercial-oriented business, or we are talking more about the care contact centers, but typically I think that you should, they are really correlated because we are always saying that the only happy customer can deliver really great customer experience to your, I'm sorry, only happy employee can deliver really great customer experience to your customers. If you want to do like a one step more on top of your standard performance. So generally, I will always focus on both of them, and typically, I think it's quite new standard in these days that the agent position or to work in the contact center is not so fancy anymore from the labor market perspective, and it's always harder and harder to get the right people on board who will be able to deal with all the new systems, CRMs, digital stuff, and so on, and to be able to answer the complicated questions of your customers. So typically, I will always focus on the employees, on the end users or customers as well. So.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's it for round one. But if you click one more, please, yeah, there will be the hashtag. Okay, so for those of you who came later, you can still ask questions through Slido. You can use this hashtag to enter the event or the link I shared in chat. And don't worry if you have a question related to the first topic later on, we will still get back to it at the end. So just ask. Okay,
Perfect.
we can move on.
Thanks a lot. So the second topic will deal with the SLAs or promise to customer from our perspective, because SLA as a service level agreement, when it's communicated to the customer, it's from our perspective the real promise which you are giving to the customer. And if you have made any root cause analysis, or if you read the feedbacks in the past of your customers, so you will realize that this is real trigger of customer dissatisfaction if the promise which your people has been given to the customer was not fulfilled. So generally, there are many of SLAs. So it could be like 24 hours for emails, 48 hours, even 5 days. So we have many different touch points, many different types of transactions. But generally, what we can see in recent years, so the SLAs to answer the requests from the customers are getting shorter and shorter. This put a lot of pressure on the headcount, on your staffing, on the availability of the knowledge and information to your people. Generally, when we are looking at the SLA as a commitment to the customer, so we can see that they are being used to answer some kind of request, like an email request, messaging request, or even the letter. On the other hand, it's being used when we are saying or promising the customer that we will contact the customer back, because you need to do some follow-ups. There needs to be some partial case being resolved within the transaction. Anyhow, there still needs to be like a proper contact back or callback set up in a system and conducted by the agent to make sure that the request of the customer has been resolved. Another thing is when we are saying to the customer that we need to send something to the customer or to deliver something. So, for example, some kind of good documentation, whatever. So again, there should be like a clear SLA communicated to the customer, so the customer will align the expectation with the reality. In normal professional world, we hope that there is some kind of SLA being set for all the communication with the customer, which could be clustered in the categories as shown before. So typically, if you don't have any SLAs to answer the customer, so that's the wrong way how to do the contact center business, and you should consider to find out what SLAs which could fit to the needs of your customers. It's quite simple. You can always ask them the simple question that, for example, to answer the email, what is the preferred acceptable time to receive the answer? The same for messaging and other kind of requests as well. And based on that, you will see that 80–90% of the customers will fit in some cycle time, which could be really somewhere between 1 and 5 days, but I would not a lot of money on it that it will be more than like 2 days. Well, so let's get back to our use case, and let's consider that we have SLA proper set for each type of transaction. So what could happen? So the SLA is not communicated to the customer. Okay, so in that case, at least we have aligned our service and delivery of our service against some internal SLA, but the customer don't have the information. So the expectations of the customer could vary. On the other hand, the SLA could be communicated properly to the customer, but you are not meeting or hitting your target. So typically, just because of the fact that you have too many requests or too many emails, too many messages, so you are not able to fulfill the SLA. Anyhow, you are still keeping to communicate the same SLA to your customer. The third option is that you are communicating the SLA and you are on a target. This is the best option for the customer, and from the customer satisfaction perspective, it definitely will help to drive your customer satisfaction results. The previous two options definitely will put some pressure on customer satisfaction and will cause that the customer satisfaction could decrease a little at the end of the day. Well, the first use case, we are looking at the root cause analysis of verbatims of this little customer, and we realized that there is within this client there is no clear SLA being communicated to the client when they are doing the promise to contact the client back, to contact the customer back. Based on the root cause analysis, we found out that this is causing like 3% of repeated calls from the whole call volume. And it was just because of the fact that there was no callback in a time that the customer considered as the proper one to being contacted, just because of the fact that there was no clear SLA communicated to the customer. So the customer just after 1, 2, maybe 3 days, he or she picked up the phone and called the contact center to make the escalation of the case. With the proper quality monitoring, client proved that 90% of these repeated calls were really caused because of the missing SLA communication to the customer. So the customer, the expectation of the customer were not managed at all. So after they fixed this with the proper corrective actions, like they put in the quality monitoring something like that, all the agents have to communicate the SLAs properly to the customer, so they realized that they can decrease the call volume by 2% at the end of the day, which is quite a big gain. And again, it really depends from the size of your operations. But if you are doing like thousands of calls every day, so you can really calculate by yourself really simple business case behind it. Another case was that we were looking at the different client and the SLA which has SLA for answer, which has been communicated, but really was not on a target. So typically, customer has received confirmation that he will get the answer within the 48 hours. But based on the hard data, only 56% of the answers were received within 48 hours during targeted interval or specific time frame. So in this case, we were really saying or discussing with the client what is happening with the 44% of the answers which are out of SLAs. What is the real cycle time for them? On the other hand, we propose the client that they should try to find the cycle time which will fit 90% of their customer in the real world. And just because of that fact, because these answers which has been out of SLA were costing 4% of incoming calls. Again, it was like an escalation. So I didn't receive the answer in within 48 hours as you promised to me. So I'm just making sure that my case is somewhere and somebody is taking care of it. So based on it, the client realized that 90% of the answers has been received by the client within 96 hours. So as you can see, it's really different compared to the 48 hours which has been promised to the customer. So our recommendation is always just to be really open and bold to your customer, and in time when you don't have enough resources to hit your targeted SLA, so it's much better to communicate the real SLA to the customer. In this case, you will definitely not please the customer, but at the end of the day, you will make sure that you will at least manage their expectations. And most probably, and this is always confirmed by the figures from different clients, most of these customers, even they will be unpleased with the SLA, they will not try to escalate it within the new SLA, which has been communicated fairly to them. So benefits for this client used to be that while they didn't not please the customer at the end of the day, at least they were able to manage call volume reduction because of the escalations which has been avoided from the inbound call traffic. And at the end of the day, again, they are able to generate some annual labor cost savings, or they just can reuse this utilization from inbound for handling the emails or other different transactions. So again, win-win situation. Okay, and that's it for the SLA topic. I think that we can move on with the questions and answers.
Okay, so another round of questions. Let me just turn on the video. Okay. So yeah, another question for you. Does it make sense to focus on detractor satisfaction, even though they make up only 3%? Will it not reduce the satisfaction of other customers? What do you think?
Well, it depends, because to be honest, to get more precise answer, I would have to see the data first. So what kind of case we are talking about, what kind of or what type of transactions, and what are the customer experience data on it. typically, if you are reaching high percentage of the customer satisfaction, and it doesn't matter if you are using overall satisfaction as a measurement or NPS, generally, you should always focus mainly on avoiding of the detractors, because when you will even cut the detractors by small portion, you will always increase the percentage of the satisfied or loyal customers. So typically, you should always understand the key drivers of the customer disloyalty or dissatisfaction and try to avoid it through some proper or simple contact avoidance program within the organization. So my answer is typically I would focus on it.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's it for the second round. I think you can continue with the next topic, and then we will have the last round of questions.
Great, perfect. Okay, the last topic is dedicated to the average handling time, or AHT, quite common metric within the contact center and the customer experience. So typically, we are saying that with the variation management, you can always gain a lot of benefits, because within the contact centers there are always many people who are conducting the same process. They used to have the same skills and deliver the same service to our customers. Generally, we are all humans, so there will be always some differences in the performance and in the approach of your people to your customers. The fact is that you really need to understand this variation and to address if it's not meeting your expectations or expectations of your clients. So generally, with this client, we have looked at the variation on average handling time of the calls within the inbound call center, and we found out that there are quite big differences. So you can see that the variation comes from the less than 3 minutes up to 5.5 minutes. If you are conducting this variation analysis on a, I don't know, 6 months data or 1 year data, so you will realize that there are people who really like to talk a lot with the customer. Doesn't mean that they are better with solving the requests of the customers. In the past, it used to be quite common understanding that the more the agent is talking with the customer on the line, the more care is giving to the customer. On the other hand, these days the time is the real crucial asset for most of the customers, and they really prefer to solve or to resolve their request fast, easily, effortless, and so on. So we have just merged this data with the satisfaction results on the level of agent. Here we're looking on the top box, and we found out that there is quite nice correlation between the AHT, average AHT, and the overall satisfaction. So you can see that the longer the agent is handling the calls, the lower satisfaction is being considered by the customer. So when we will just split this sample into the quadrals, so we can see that the left one, which is targeting the most efficient agent, is saying that they are able to handle the calls within the 3 minutes of AHT, and they are delivering like 81% of satisfaction. On the other side of the sample size, we can see that the agents with the longest calls, they are doing the calls in more than 5 minutes in average, and they are reaching only 77% in satisfaction. Yeah, I can imagine that you will say, okay, it's not so big deal, not so such big difference. On the other hand, if we are talking about the percentage of satisfaction on the overall volume of customers who are you serving every day, so you can easily calculate how many customers are maybe getting lower satisfaction just because of this. On the other hand, customer experience data in this case are not enough to consider this analysis as the proper one. You have to always put their proper quality monitoring, which should prove that the people who are on the left side, who are doing really short calls and delivering better satisfaction, that they are not cutting the corners. so they are not cheating somehow on a customer or on you, because it's quite simple for an agent to make sure that the customer will leave the line fast and easily with some nice answer, which will not solve the case at the end of the day. But again, this is always in your hand, and you should always put the quality monitoring results on the customer experience data when you are doing such correlation analysis on your agents. Maybe one remark to the quality monitoring, because it should be always correlated somehow with the customer satisfaction. So if you would put here the quality monitoring, and if you will say that all the agents are hitting 100% or 100 points every time, so in that case the quality monitoring is not working properly and is not supporting your business generally. So in that case you have to be more you have to put more pressure on your agents through the quality monitoring forms and make sure that you are following the right drivers, key drivers of the customer satisfaction and dissatisfaction. In turn, this you can find out in the analysis of the root causes and analysis of the verbatims of your customers, which they can leave through the proper customer satisfaction survey. So, but let's focus on this case. Let's consider that the quality monitoring has proved that the correlation is good and the people with the shortest scores are really doing their job great. So you can consider them as a best practice. And based on that, you should set up like a best case agent who can handle the most efficient calls and deliver the best satisfaction. If you would succeed, so you can reduce, in the case of this client, up to 80% of their productive time, which is being currently wasted with the part of the discussion which doesn't have impact on customer satisfaction and partially is not even needed from the customer perspective. Again, these are really simple correlations, and there should be always more data put into it, which you typically have, because definitely this picture will be different if you are selling within inbound, so you are doing some kind of service to sell. So in that case, you can always use this wasted time for a more commercial outcome at the end of the day. So we have looked not only on our customer satisfaction and its correlation with the AHT, but even on the FCR. FCR is really nice, simple metric, which always will help you to drive the improvements, to gain some efficiency, or on the other hand, to gain some savings. So first contact or first call resolution in this case showed the similar correlation as the overall satisfaction did. So the people who are handling calls faster, so they are delivering better FCR. In this case, again, the quality monitoring has to prove that these people are really not cutting the corners and they are just not trying to move on to the next call and just get rid of the customer easily. So in this case, you can see that the difference between the highest quadrile and the lowest one. 3% of FCR, it's quite significant one, because we are talking here about the overall call volume which you are getting within the contact center. So the benefits for the client in this case. So what they can achieve if they will try to target the people with the best practice achieved by their own people as performers. So they can increase their satisfaction just with the variation management by 3 percentage points. They can reuse the save productive time for other activities, or they can create some annual labor cost savings. And definitely they can increase the first contact resolution and decrease the repeated calls. So again, win-win situation. You just need to put a lot of focus on it to make sure that the variation management on the operation will work properly. So that's it for this topic, and maybe at the end of the presentation, I would like just to mention one important thing, and that's the relation between customer experience and commercial performance. This has been proved in the past years by many companies, many consultants, that really you can increase customer experience altogether with the increasing of the revenue, efficiency, and quality of service while decreasing the costs. So this is our mantra, and we really believe that this is the real customer experience world, which is really not on top of some commercial performance, but it's really the significant part of it. So, time for questions and answers.
Okay, let's go through the last questions we have here. We have two questions for you, Jan. So the first one, very good one. Are there any best practices to shorten the length of calls? What do you think?
Well, generally, again, it depends what kind of contact centers are running, what is the real AHT, and okay, so make it to explain more simply. So I would take the average call and I would try to put it in parts. So this is like invitation, some kind of identification or verification of the customer. So some questions to find out the needs. Then there is some follow-up in a system and maybe some explanation to the customer. Based on understanding of each of this part of the call, you can find out which is delivering, which is the most important to resolve the case of the customer, and which is delivering some kind of value at the end of the day. Based on that, maybe you will realize that you are spending too much time, or your agents are spending too much time with the, I don't know, identification of the customers, or they are lacking tools to get the proper information to the customer, so they have to put the customer in a hold and trying to find the information in the insufficient knowledge base, or they have to ask somebody or whatever. So based on understanding of these small parts of the call, you can build up the picture of the new call, which will be at the end of the day very short one, and based on that you can run even some improvement initiatives within your organization. But again, it's much better to discuss on the real data.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And there's another question. What does ROCX mean? We mentioned it just briefly at the beginning of the presentation, so can you expand a little bit?
Well, sure. So it's return on customer experience. As I said, we really believe that the customer experience, it's not like just like a cost part of your organization, but again, based on the customer experience, you can really gain some commercial success, commercial performance, to gain new incremental revenues, or to really decrease the cost and increase the efficiency. So it's really part of the, or it should be definitely part of the decision process within each organization when you are trying to perform better and to gain more from the commercial perspective as well. That's the return on customer experience, because we can see that there are many simple or even more heavy data analysis which are proving that there are many correlations between the improving of customer experience and delivering better commercial results.
Okay, so those are all of our questions. Thank you very much, Jan, for answering. If that's it, I think we can move to the end of our presentation. So let me just thank everyone for coming. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank Jan for the great presentation he made. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us through our website, through the contact form on our website. And we will look forward to our next webinar. Hope we can see you there.